A child placed his hands on the controls of a passenger jet. At first, nothing looked dangerous. The plane was still flying. But deep inside the system, the aircraft had already started turning away from safety. What happened next would become one of the most studied cockpit disasters in aviation history. Late evening, March 22, 1994. Moscow's Sheremetyevo International Airport. An Airbus A310 sits at the gate, fueled and ready for a long overnight run to Hong Kong. The aircraft, registered FOGQS and named Glinka, was one of only 5 A310s in Aeroflot's entire fleet. These planes were new to Russia, Western-built, Western-designed, and carrying systems that most Russian pilots had never trained on before. At the controls was a 3-person crew. Captain Andrei Danilov, 40, would take the first portion of the flight. First Officer Igor Piskaryov, 33, held the right seat. Relief Captain Yaroslav Kudrinsky, 39, was there to rotate in during the 9-hour journey so the others could rest. What made this flight different was sitting in the passenger cabin. Kudrinsky's 2 children, 15-year-old Eldar and 12-year-old Yana, were on their first international trip, traveling as passengers under the informal watch of off-duty pilot Vladimir Makarov, who was deadheading on the same flight. Kudrinsky was among the handful of pilots in all of Russia selected to fly Western jets. For him, this trip meant something. His children were going to see the world, and somewhere in that pride, a line was about to be crossed. At 13:39 UTC, the aircraft lifted off and climbed east into the night over Siberia. As the hours passed, Captain Danilov returned to the cabin to sleep. Kudrinsky took the left seat. The plane was on autopilot. Everything was calm. It was now the early hours of March 23rd. Around 0040 local Siberian time, Kudrinsky broke Aeroflot regulations. He opened the cockpit door and invited his children inside. 5 people were now on the flight deck. The mood was relaxed. Kudrinsky pointed at the displays and explained the aircraft. Then he asked Yana if she wanted to sit in his seat. She sat down. He raised the seat so she could see over the panel. Then he switched the autopilot from NAV mode to heading select, turned the heading knob left, and the plane banked gently. Yana felt the column move. It looked like she was flying. She was not. The autopilot was doing everything. She had zero real control. After a few minutes, Yana gave the seat to her older brother. Eldar was more eager. Eldar asked if he could turn the wheel himself. Kudrinsky said yes without hesitation. He genuinely believed the autopilot would push back against any input. That belief was about to cost everyone on board their lives. Here is what Kudrinsky did not fully understand about the A310. On Soviet aircraft, if a pilot pushed the control column hard enough, the autopilot shut off completely. One system, one disconnect, one loud warning. Every pilot in Russia knew that the A310 worked differently. Its autopilot had 2 separate channels. One controlled bank angle through the ailerons. The other held altitude. These 2 channels could disconnect from each other independently. If only one channel let go, there was no sound, no alarm. Just a small light on the instrument panel. The pilots thought the plane was still safely flying itself. But the aircraft had started listening to the control wheel instead. By the time the crew understood, the plane was already in a dangerous bank. When Eldar leaned into the column, applying between 10 and 13 kilograms of force, he was working against what the autopilot was trying to do. Piskaryov was also holding his linked column to monitor Eldar. Their combined pressure slowly crossed the threshold. Just past 0055, the continuous pressure crossed the system's threshold. The lateral channel disconnected, silently. The warning light came on. Nobody saw it. Kudrinsky had turned toward Yana, who was asking questions again. Piskaryov was focused on Eldar. Nobody was scanning the instrument panel. The plane was no longer steering itself. Eldar and Piskaryov were steering it without knowing it. The aircraft started banking right. Slowly at first. About 1 degree per second. Eldar noticed it first. The navigation display showed a curving arc ahead of the aircraft. The crew looked at it and made the wrong call. That arc looked exactly like a holding pattern. Piskaryov said they had entered a holding zone. Kudrinsky agreed. They spent 9 seconds debating which waypoint had triggered it. 9 seconds. The plane kept rolling right. By the time the crew stopped talking, the bank had passed 45 degrees. Beyond that angle, the wings cannot hold altitude. The aircraft began to descend. The altitude channel, still active, pitched the nose up and added thrust to stop the drop. That made things worse. The wings started to stall. G-forces pressed everyone into the floor. Kudrinsky could not get back to his seat. "Hold it! Hold the column!" he shouted. Piskaryov tried to bank left. Eldar turned left too. But they fought each other, and the stalled airflow made the ailerons weak. The plane rolled past 90 degrees. Stall warnings fired. The full autopilot disconnected. Altitude alarm screamed. The navigation screen went blank. The plane entered a near-vertical dive. The dive reduced the G-forces just enough for movement. Kudrinsky screamed at Eldar to get out. Eldar finally moved. Kudrinsky dropped into the left seat and worked alongside Piskaryov. They pulled out of the dive, but Piskaryov overcorrected. The plane shot into a near-vertical climb, bled off speed, and stalled again. It fell back into a corkscrew. They leveled the wings a second time. On the recording, Kudrinsky was sobbing while calling for full power. "We're coming out, Piskaryov said, gently. "Pull up gently." What the crew did not know was that simply letting go of the controls would have saved everyone. If they had taken their hands off the yokes, the aircraft's natural aerodynamic stability would have leveled the plane and pulled it out of the dive. But neither pilot had been trained to trust the aircraft in that state. They kept fighting. The aircraft kept falling. At 17:58:01 UTC, the cockpit voice recorder captured the sound of impact. The aircraft hit the Kuznetsk-Alatau mountain range at roughly 14,000 feet per minute. The impact was unsurvivable. All 75 people aboard were killed instantly. No distress call was ever made. Aeroflot first denied that children had been on the flight deck. That story collapsed in September 1994 when the Moscow magazine Obozrevatelь published a leaked copy of the CVR transcript. The world read exactly what had been said, who had been in the seat, and what the crew believed was happening. Russia's Interstate Aviation Committee released its findings in November 1994. The formal report came in April 1995. The conclusion was clear: no mechanical failure. No technical fault in the aircraft. The crash came from pilot error, broken cockpit discipline, and a crew that was not fully trained on the systems they were operating. The committee also made an urgent recommendation. Most commercial aircraft in 1994 had no warning for excessive bank angle. If Flight 593 had carried a high bank angle alert, the crew would have known much earlier, before the ailerons lost effectiveness. That single recommendation changed the global fleet.